Hi guys, we're going to talk about interest today. Interest comes in many forms. Knowing the kind of interest you're paying is very important if you're in debt or about to borrow money. Then this is essential because not only will you be able to view your options and see what's best for you, but also know the real cost of borrowing money. We're going to talk about a little bit about certain definitions. At the most basic level, interest is the fee that you pay for borrowing money. Principal is the amount of money that was borrowed. Amortization is something that's used a lot in the lending industry, and it's a breakdown of payments with the principal and interest applied to each payment, and it's a schedule. They tell you, month by month, year by year, and stuff like that. So that way you'll be able to know how much is paid at the end of the borrowing period, how much it costs to borrow. Prime rate is something that's really important to know because it is attached to so many things in interest. So prime rate is usually the lowest rate that banks will charge, and it's often used as a benchmark. That's it. It's the benchmark that the bank uses. It's not available to consumers, but it's a major factor in determining the interest rates that the consumers will pay. So keep that in mind. Prime rate is also known as an index, and the prime rate will change. Okay. Margin is what the bank charges. So we'll go ahead and be more detailed in a sec. For right now, we're going to talk about fixed interest rate. The rate remains the same for a set period of time. Super easy. It's for the life of the loan, and this means that the monthly payment on the borrowed money will not change for the whole time that you have the debt. They're scheduled to be paid off in a certain amount of time, and you usually see fixed rates in auto loans, personal loans, and home loans and stuff like that. Variable rates. This is a rate that can change over time. They're also known as adjustables and floating rates, and variable rates use this formula. Index or prime rate plus margin. Remember, margin is what the bank charges, and that will give you the interest rate that you are actually paying. So it's a rate that can change over time, right? So it changes because of different things like fluctuating markets, economic conditions, and other factors like that. And usually you see this in credit cards, personal loans, home equity lines of credit, private student loans. We see that a lot in those. And what usually will change is the prime rate. The margin doesn't change. Annual percentage rate, that's calculated super simple. We just went over it. So it's the prime rate or the index plus the margin, and that's what you end up paying is the annual percentage rate. So let's say, for example, the prime rate is 5% and the margin is 15%. The APR, or what you pay as the borrower, is 20%. Simple interest is calculated using the original borrowed amount and a fixed interest rate. The interest does not change throughout the term of the loan, and the interest is only paid to the remaining balance. So let's say, for example, you have $1,000 and you're paying simple interest. You pay $500. Now you're only paying interest on the rest of the $500 that you owe, nothing else, right? Compound interest, that's really different. The easiest way that I can describe compound interest is you're paying interest on interest, essentially, right? So compound interest is interest on top of interest that has already been added to your principal. How does this affect the majority of the population that owes money? Well, compound interest can make debt grow way faster and more substantially over time. For example, if you carry a balance from month to month on a credit card, compound interest can add to what you owe. So you're saying, oh, but I'm paying more to my credit card. Yeah, that's how compound interest works. Especially on a credit card, they charge you interest on a daily, and it's compound interest. So this is actually quite important. So there are a couple factors that you need to take into account when you're trying to calculate. Now, you don't have to calculate this by yourself. There are a lot of free calculators. I think I have here, let me see, thecalculatorsite.com. I added an S to that, but you put thecalculatorsite.com, and it gives you all different kind of financial calculators, and it includes the compound interest calculator so that you can see, how much it costs to borrow money, how much you're compounding and stuff like that. And in order to know if you are getting compound interest or not, you have to actually look at your credit card. Do they compound it daily, monthly, yearly? They're, those are important questions to ask yourself. So these are the factors that compound interest takes into account to be able to calculate it. Interest rate, how much you borrow, frequency of compounding, like I said, daily, monthly, or yearly, length of time that you're going to pay the loan in. The longer you owe the money, the more compound interest you're going to pay. You're paying interest on interest on interest. So let's say, for example, you're multiplying 2 times 2 is 4, right? Now you're multiplying 2 times 4 is 8. Now 8 times 2 is 16. You see how big that number got so quickly? That's compounding. I hope I did the math right. Well, you get the gist. So anyway, length of time is very important to save money. So the faster you can pay that debt, the less interest you're paying on interest. And then obviously the ending balance. So there is a formula, which is balance equals principal times 1 plus what's our interest rate divided by the frequency of compounding, and then you exponentially multiply that times the compounding times the length of time. And that was really difficult, so hopefully you can see that. That's the formula. Again, you don't have to do it. They have so many free calculators, but I just want you to know that there is a specific formula to be able to calculate daily, monthly, yearly interest. And you can do it by going to those websites. The problem with a lot of the times is when you have a debt that compounds on a daily basis, like credit cards are, those often are the culprit. If you're paying the minimum, that doesn't get you out of debt faster. So let's say, for example, a scenario, day one, you owe $1,000. The balance is $1,000. Your APR is 20%. So you're multiplying 1,000 times 20% divided by 365 days because it's compounding daily. So every day you're paying 55 cents of interest. That's getting added to your balance. So at the end of the month, you're paying like $16.80. And that's how much it costs for that month to borrow that money. Now, if you pay it faster, then you're owing less, right? Using a compound calculator, like I said, make it so much easier than sitting there and writing it down. The next type of interest I find that a lot of people don't understand, and they think that it's a really good thing a lot of the times because it's just getting pushed to the side. It's called deferred interest. It allows you to avoid interest on borrowed money if you pay off the balance in full within a specified time frame. Now, a lot of the times that we're thinking about deferred interest, it applies to different things, but most common time that I hear deferred interest is student loans. So if you're not paying your student loan off in full within a certain time, you'll be responsible for paying the interest that accumulates during that time that you weren't paying it. What's that called? Accrued interest. Accrued interest is so scary because if you have a loan, let's say, I think commonly I see maybe around $50,000 to $100,000 to even $200,000 being borrowed to go to school. And these students are starting off their career and they're deferring it for God knows how long. Now, during that time that it's not being paid, it's accruing interest. What does that mean? Interest is accumulating over time based on the loan's interest rate. Even if the payments aren't being paid, the longer a loan goes unpaid, the more accrued interest will be added to the principal amount. So the loan is deferred. Now you owe interest on all of that money that hasn't been paid that whole time. That's increasing the amount that you owe, right? That is so scary because now not only are you borrowing, but you're owing more and more and more and more as the time is going, and nothing is getting paid to that balance. Nothing is getting paid to that interest. So what do? Start paying it, because then it costs us less money, because the longer we take to pay it, the more it's going to cost us. They're not going to forgive it, right? And there are programs that will forgive loans, but you have to start making payments. For example, I know of someone that their contract says that if they pay, as soon as they start paying it, they have to pay it for, I think it's 10 years, and then be working at a nonprofit for, I think, 10 years as well. So while they're working, they're still paying and stuff like that. And that shows them that they can apply to get the loan forgiven. It does not guarantee it. So again, it's quite scary, but read your guys' contracts, find out how much it's going to cost, if it's accruing, how much it's accruing, what the prerequisites are, because all of this stuff can be super overwhelming once it comes on. So a lot of the times when people account for debt, they don't account for debt that's not being paid. What happens when you have to pay for that debt and you're not accounting for that debt? It has to get paid. Someone's going to pay it, right? So it's very scary. But that's why I'm here. Give you guys the information that you need. And depending on what your situation is, we can find different avenues on how to deal with it based on your need, what you know, because you always know best, right? All right. I hope this was helpful. This is all I got as far as interest rates right now. Our next video will be a little bit different. Okay. Have a good one. Bye.